For Ferrari's 75th anniversary, we would like to get to know better its founder, Enzo Ferrari. We will do this by looking at some of his lesser-known and even previously undiscovered facets. You will learn, for example, that Enzo Ferrari not only lived and worked in Geneva, but that he also raced there. On March 16, 1924, he set the third fastest time in the kilometer run at Eau Morte. However, this was not the first time that Enzo Ferrari had raced in Switzerland. In 1921 and 1922, he had taken part in the Grand Saint-Bernard hill climb, and successfully. Some episodes in Enzo Ferrari's life are shrouded in mystery, like the date of his birth. The Commendatore has always claimed that he was born in Modena on 18 February 1898, but his father declared it only 2 days later because of the heavy snowfall. However, the meteorological data indicate that no snowfall had been observed in Modena, either on that day or during the whole month of February. Another mystery concerns the reasons for Enzo Ferrari's participation in the Eau Morte mile run on the 16th of March, 1924. This race, organized as part of the Salon de Genève, took place on the straight line between Bernex and Chancy in the Geneva countryside. The commemorative plaque, erected near the Athanase Passery bus stop of the Geneva public transport system, reads, "Tribute to Enzo Ferrari for his victory in the Eau Morte kilometer in 1924. In the Journal de Genève of the time, it was stated that Enzo Ferrari, Geneva, Alfa Romeo, set the third fastest time of the day in 27 inches 1 second, beaten only by the Frenchmen René Thomas Delage and Jules Morisseau Talbot, who clocked 17 inches 6 seconds and 25 inches 3 seconds, respectively. The Genevan Enzo Ferrari, as well as the Frenchmen René Thomas and Jules Morisseau, they all won their category where they were the only ones registered. The Geneva period of Enzo Ferrari in the book, Enzo Ferrari, Una vita per l'automobile, published by his son, Piero Ferrari, from notes written in the first person by his father. Eau Morte's victory is described as follows. I won in 1924 the kilometer run of Geneva in the sport category. I had a 6-cylinder Alfa RLSS and had been able to count on the organizational talent of Albert Schmidt, for whom I had already driven a few months earlier, during the only period when I worked abroad. Before leading the Scuderia Ferrari, which raced Alfa Romeos from 1930, then building cars bearing his name as of 1947, Enzo Ferrari was indeed a renowned driver. He was certainly not as fast as Tazio Nuvolari, considered by many the best driver of his generation, but he still achieved several remarkable results. This was in his second competition season, in 1920. That year, he notably ranked third in the general classification of the Parma Poggio di Berceto Hill climb on an Inisota Fraschini, then second in the general classification overall of the Targa Florio on his debut with Alfa Romeo. Before arriving in Geneva, Enzo Ferrari competed in around 15 races at the wheel of different Alfa Romeo. Is this the reason why he worked for several months, between the end of 1923 and the beginning of 1924, with Albert Schmidt, who at the time was an Alfa Romeo agent at Boulevard James Fazi in Geneva? Very likely. Enzo Ferrari quickly realized that he had more talent for making his cars race and for selling them than for driving them. So why not take inspiration from the previously mentioned organizational talent of Albert Schmidt before setting up on his own? Especially since Albert Schmidt was not only an Alfa Romeo agent, but also a Morris and Rolls-Royce agent. Albert Schmidt, Alfa Romeo agent in Geneva. It should also be noted that Albert Schmidt was not content to sell his Alfa Romeo. He also raced them, just as Enzo Ferrari would later do. In addition to the Alfa Romeo entrusted to Enzo Ferrari at Aumort, 2 other Alfa Romeo were indeed entered during this event, including one for Albert Schmidt himself, who won in 31 seconds, 3/100ths ahead of 3 other competitors in Category 4 of the tourist class. Was Enzo Ferrari inspired by Albert Schmidt before creating his Scuderia on December 1st, 1929? We don't know. What is certain, however, is that he was very impressed by the 12-cylinder Delage driven at Aumort by Frenchman René Thomas. When he himself became a builder, Enzo Ferrari would make 12-cylinder engines one of his main trademarks, building on its success at Aumort, where it set a new European record at 203.5 kilometers per hour with René Thomas's Delage. The French manufacturer attracted many people to its stand at the Geneva Motor Show. The 12-cylinder racing Delage was, of course, on display there. This was to the delight of the special correspondent of the Journal de Genève, who wrote, "With such attractions, the show will fascinate a considerable crowd because the automobile has taken a prominent place in our society. Transport and speed are indeed factors of progress. This progress is also of interest to the organizers of the Abbey." Si vous souhaitez approfondir le sujet, vous pouvez découvrir l'article complet sur Enzo Ferrari dans le numéro 9 de Legends Magazine. Plongez dans l'histoire de cette marque mythique